Hey, welcome back to Lombere Tactical. So, this is going to be part 2 or 3 of the Glock upgrades, and these are the new components that I got. So, I went to the Glock store today down in San Diego, and picked up these 3 items here, and they're all to improve the trigger of the Glock. Essentially using the stock Glock trigger and just enhancing it to the max that it possibly can be. And again, this is all for competition use. I might use this as a carry weapon from time to time, but primarily this is going to be for competition. So, let me show you what we got. Right here is the Black Yikes 3.0 trigger connector by Glock Store. And this has a coating on here called friction reducing armor lube. It's something similar to a nickel boron coating in the sense that it's going to be very slippery, lubricious, and just aid in a very low coefficient of friction so that you have a nice, clean, reduced weight trigger break. And then also the angle that, see if I can make it focus. The angle up here at the very top of the connector, you'll notice it's a little slanted, and that slant is also what aids in the reduced weight of the trigger pull. So this will give you a 3-pound trigger break, and it does take a little bit of time from what the Glock Store says for the trigger to break in to give you that 3 pound, but it is going to reduce the weight of the trigger dramatically. Now, another issue with the Glock trigger is all of the wasted movement of the trigger as you pull it. It has a lot of over movement. It doesn't necessarily have a nice clean break. It kind of does like a rolling break into the trigger. So it has a lot of pull and a lot of give. This right here helps reduce the travel of the trigger, and it has a little screw at the top right here. It's going to be hard to see it on camera, but there's a little screw up here, and you essentially screw it in or out with this Allen wrench once you install it. And what that does is it helps you customize the over travel that is acceptable for the trigger as you pull it. So essentially whatever you're looking for, the custom amount of distance you want that trigger to pull before it breaks, this right here gives you that customization ability. So I'm really excited to try this one out. And then I went ahead and got the competition spring kit from the Glock Store. This right here will again reduce the weight, and it comes with a few different striker springs, so a 2-pound, a 4-pound, and a 6-pound, as well as a reduced power safety plunger spring and an increased power trigger reset spring. So what that means is essentially you want the increased power in the trigger reset so you have a nice firm break in the trigger, but you also want a reduced power safety plunger so that it's easier for the trigger to deactivate that safety plunger rather than a tougher spring. And the striker spring rates, you don't necessarily want to go with the lightest one. It really depends on what you're shooting. So I'm going to go with the 4-pound one. It's the middle of the road type of spring weight. And the reason being is you don't want to have light primer strikes. And I don't reload my ammo as of yet, so I'm not going to be playing around with primers to kind of customize the bullets that I'm going to be shooting for competition just yet. But I am going to hang on to these springs because I do plan on doing that in the future. But since I buy essentially a lot of Federal ammo and Winchester, and those are generally just normal quality, I think the 4-pound striker spring should be perfect for that. Since I don't buy like any cheaper ammo like tool ammo or anything like that. So that should be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and install this, but I want to show you the over travel of this trigger so you can see essentially the before and after. So I'm going to pull it from this side here so you can see it. Or actually, let me do this way. Now we are clear, of course. This is dismantled. Okay. Safe direction. All right, so right here, as you pull this back, if I do it really slow, okay, right there is a wall already, some resistance, but that's not the wall it's gonna break, okay, so you push past that. There's another wall right there, so you push past that, and it's gonna see there's some over travel right there, and it keeps going. It keeps going until it breaks. And let's look at the reset. Alright, so that's pretty far of a reset. And then let's look at the pull now. I'm pulling. You see that there's some over travel there, right? And then it breaks. So this isn't the most ideal trigger. And hopefully, after I install these parts, we have a much better performing trigger. Now I'm going to show you essentially what we're going to be doing since YouTube doesn't like us to show how to install parts in firearms. I'm going to at least give you an idea of what we're doing here. So right here, this is going to be the trigger stop with the ejector right there. So that part is what we're going to be changing out with this part here. And this little part, this little piece of metal right here that's sticking up, it's going to be hard for you to see it, but that right there is the top of the trigger connector, that little top part on the side. So that right there just goes into the trigger stop housing, and we're going to be changing that part out. And then the springs. So the striker, or the firing pin, is right here, and we're going to be changing out that spring. The safety plunger is here, the little shiny part, and we're going to be changing out the spring behind that. And then, of course, the trigger spring, which is going to be, where's the trigger spring? Oh, it's going to be right into here in the trigger housing. So we're going to put that together. I'm going to do that off camera because, again, I don't want to be striked by YouTube. But I'm going to show you essentially the after, once it's installed, and show you kind of what that does with the trigger. All right, so stay tuned. All right, and we're back. So I got everything in here set up. I'm going to show you with the trigger how it functions now. All right, so compared to before, we're going to go right here. We hit a wall right here. And then it has a little bit of over travel there. Well, actually, it's still quite a bit. So we hit a wall, a little bit of over travel. Okay, now we have a wall right here. Okay, so this is the actual wall that's going to break. So if you pull that, okay, so that final over travel that we saw in the last trigger pull, once you come up to that final wall, there's no more over travel. You're just pulling till it breaks. Okay, so if I pull this quickly, it actually feels very, very light. So the reset right there, and then we hit the wall. Boom. All right, so I'm going to show you where the adjustments come into play into this. So I'm just going to take this slide off. All right, so we changed obviously the trigger housing, and I have the old trigger housing right here. All right, so this is the old trigger connector, the old trigger housing and trigger stop here, or this whole plastic thing, the old ejector, and then this spring right here is the trigger spring right there. All right, so we changed all of this out and put in the new one. So this new one is adjustable. The trigger stop is to adjust that play in the trigger. All right, so I'm going to show you essentially what you do. You just pull out this pin right here. It pops out very easily. All right. Now, all you do is you just pop up, you put your finger on the ejector right here. You pop up just a little bit, okay? And then that's going to expose the screw right here. Let's see if I can get it to focus on this. Might be a little tricky. So, right here is a little screw, okay? And that screw is hitting right here on the cruciform part of the trigger bar right there, that shiny part. So right here is a little screw. That screw you adjust to push against that cruciform by taking your little tool that it comes with. You put it inside the back end right here, and then now you're inside of that screw that's pressing up against that cruciform. And I can turn this either clockwise or counterclockwise to essentially decrease or increase that trigger play. So the more that I turn it clockwise, the less trigger play we're going to have, and the more I pull it counterclockwise, the more trigger play we're going to have. So I have it set right here. I'm okay with this for the moment. I will take it out to the range and we'll test it, and we'll probably make maybe a few more minor adjustments. I don't see me making any sort of crazy adjustments in either direction, pushing it in or taking it out a little bit. It's probably just going to be some minor adjustments to get it to exactly where I want it to be. But that's what's good about this trigger, is it gives you that ability to go ahead and fine-tune the gun in a way that it shoots to the performance that you're looking for. So I'm really happy with this. I'll give you an update on how this actually functions once I take it out to the range and kind of see what it's all about when it's, when you're actually firing some live ammunition through it. But it's a very easy adjustment to do. You just need to have this punch, and you just need to be a little patient with firing it, taking off the slide, making some minor adjustments, firing it again until you find something that you're happy with. Now, where it's at right now, it's already... Oh, we're having some issues here. Let's see. Alright, I'm going to make some adjustments. Be right back. Okay, we're back. So what had happened there is, for some reason, when I was pulling the trigger, I had to press it really hard to get it to fire. So it seemed like something was wrong. So what I did was pull out this pin again. First take off the slide, pull out the pin, raise the housing like we have here. So raised it just a little bit so you can see that back end. And then I did about a half a turn and took that screw out half a turn. And then put it all back in. And now it's actually functioning much better. Yeah, so I think I had done something when I was showing you guys essentially how it worked. I might have turned that screw just a little bit by accident, and it made it actually harder to fire. So, that's one thing to keep in mind, is you could over tighten that screw to the point where now the trigger is not going to function properly. So backing it out is sometimes a good thing. So right here, I think we're in business here. This is doing very well. So I give you one final look at this. So essentially you get to this wall right here, and then you're just going to pull a little bit, and then it fires. So it has that's the reset, that's the wall. So it's a little bit over traveled right there, but overall it does feel lighter. I don't have a trigger gauge tool to tell you the exact weight, but this should be right around 3 pounds. If it's a little bit more, it's because the springs need to be worn in a little bit. So after I fire it a little bit, maybe put through a couple hundred rounds through here, I might be able to actually get this to lighten up even more. So I will get that trigger gauge tool eventually, and when I get a chance to take this out to the range, loosen it up, I'll do an update video on where I ended up with the adjustments, adjusting the trigger stop, and my final thoughts on this product. So as of right now, it's looking good. It feels good. Nice short reset. Nice clean break. So I'm happy with it, and that's the update. So anyways, be sure to subscribe so you can be updated as soon as new videos are released. I have plenty more coming, so stay tuned.